Yeah. So as we know that we are in the era of generative AI, nothing can be talked about without So I will be giving a cursory overview of uh, it's taking time of uh, generative AI and its applications metric. All right. So is it not hard, as I wrote, that to believe that these are not real people? Generative AI by a generative model. So in this session, as I said, that we will have a brief introduction of generative AI. In a span of an hour, it's not possible to give you the full details, but we will be talking about three important emerge with focus on generation and application, then some benefits. And so if I talk about generative AI, let us consider the space of all images and let us sample from images and let us sample some images from that. Learn the patterns from samples. And if I ask you a question, इसकी ये खराब हो गया I need another battery. So can you generate a face image like this with a different, like images front pose? And is it possible that side pose can be generated? Because in biometric, these are important. Identifying a person from different poses. So the sample images are observations, we can say, from these images, to be cut, face images. The generative models create new samples from the space of objects. So basically they observe like we observe human, learn the patterns, and they can generate new faces from the same. So in other words, we can say that they approximate the data distribution. So let us look at the face images, these people who are here, and think of all these people in the city of Jabalpur. Is it possible by sampling these faces, we can generate face to people who are not in this group, but they are from the city of Jabalpur? That is the idea. So with the observed data of sample underlying distribution, P data we call it, the sample images are P data. That is the probability distribution. The goal of the generative model is to approximate the distribution given the data set. So idea is, can we find out from where these samples are coming? Samples are coming from Africa, samples are coming from America, the samples are coming from India and a specific part of India. That is India. So that is the probability distribution. So a learned generative model can then be kind of, primarily there are types of intelligence that are used. So anyway, so what are so what happens that about deep learning models? Deep learning models depend on parameters, right? They depend on parameters. So let us look at the parametric approximation of the actual distribution. The parameters are learned so that the distance between the actual distribution, which is here, and the learned model, distribution created by the learned model can be, this is the theta star. Theta star are the parameters which are of learned model. So this P theta star, which is depending on theta star, this probability distribution that has been a model, and that this actual distribution should be minimum. That is the idea. So you have a model family. The model family can be generative models, GAN, or variational autoencoder, or they can be diffusion models, any kind of model. That is the model family. So what is inference? Inference can be in terms of density estimation. So given a data, what is the probability that we can assign to this data point from the distribution? Like the likelihood of people with brown hair, light brown hair in Jabalpur is very low likelihood, right? What is the probability that this can be assigned to this data point? So it can be useful in fingerprint liveness detection, spoof detection, because print and generate several such fingerprints, and from those you find out that yes, these are the characteristics of real biometric of a person, and there can be variation in a, because it can be like this, it can be hard pressed, it can be just very low pressed. So there can be variations in the fingerprint identification samples. From there we look at the characteristics of the, so that liveness simply in unsupervised representation also. Please feel free in asking questions. Meaning feature representation for a data, right? Given the face image of a person, what are the meaningful representation? Like we can, when you describe a person, you will say that her nose was very sharp with big eye size, black hair. These are what we represent. So can be useful in face recognition. And pose, as I said, taken my picture in the front. You have seen me from front, but you can recognize me from, if I'm somewhere hall or in another city, you can recognize me from a side pose. Sampling to generate novel data points from the model distribution P theta, and that has created lot of revolution in various fields. So a use case can be data augmentation for rare biometric conditions. Rare biometric conditions can be person. What happens that if you see, if we keep working, we have a physical activity, then these hand prints are actually diminished. They start vanishing. So sometimes our biometric system does not recognize me because they have taken my picture maybe 30 years back. So that is how, that is the rare biometric condition, can be one. Child biometric can be rare. So for better generalization and privacy, we will be talking about this a little later. So generative, what is generative model? It is a discriminative. Let us understand what is meant by that. If you have probability, so you know what is Bayes' rule. It says that probability, conditional probability that given y, suppose label y. Label is that y is the label, that it is the image of Aparajita Oja. X is the image, actual image. Y is the label that Aparajita Oja. Now, given the condition that y is equal to Aparajita Oja, can the system generate an image of Aparajita Oja, right? Which is equal to, which is the same as the probability distribution of images of Aparajita Oja multiplied by this my own image, maybe Aparajita Oja's image, and then y is the condition, right? That is y is equal. So given the image, what is the condition? That this will be identified by the system that yes, it is the image of A Oja. Is that right? And similarly here, the prior, that is all the labels that exist. So generative models are like, they approximate with no prior condition. They approximate from, suppose you have to generate faces, so they approximate the probability distribution of faces, and accordingly they can generate. If you have conditional generative model, like in ChatGPT, we say, we ask them a question, it gives the answer. So condition is given, the question is this, it answers, right? Generate Claude, you ask it to generate a beautiful scene of say Himalayas, so it will generate. So condition is y here. So conditional generative model. And then you have a discriminative model. What is a discriminative model? That given an image, given a sample, can you identify if it is of this category or where it is located? If I identify a sample, so is it located in this room or somewhere else? That can also be the label Y. So these are discriminative model and generative model. And this is prior, right? We say that the probability of those, like each labels, that is prior circuit. That the, for example, the elements can be faces of Jabalpur city. That can be like prior probability. Also, it is not working. 3-4 times if I. So discriminative model is learning a probability. Given the sample, what is the likelihood that it is having this label? The label can be its location, label can be its category, or label can be anything related to the object. Generative model learns a probability distribution of all objects from where the samples have been taken. And conditional generative model learns a probability distribution given the label Y, what is the likelihood that that sample can be generated, right? What is the likelihood of the samples? What is the probability of samples of this label, right? So generative models capture the underlying data distribution and generate data samples that resemble the training data. For example, they learn to understand the conditional probability where X is the sample from the distribution and Y is its label. So if I am asking, please generate image of a cat, Y is equal to image of a cat, the sample X will be generated. These can have variations. Image of a cat can be this. Generate a sample of a human face. There can be various, like variations can be there. So remember that the joint probability Pxy, that X is a cat and Y is the corresponding label, right? Image of a cat is the same as Px, the conditional probability given Y, Px, and the previous one that we discussed. Discriminative model, on the other hand, they learn what? The conditional probability, like given Y is equal to cat, given X is equal to this image, what is the likelihood or what is the probability that this is an image of a cat, right? If you have any difficulty, please feel free in asking. So I'm going quick because I know that many of you might have already studied machine learning and AI. So you can see that what makes a good generative model. In fact, there is a generative learning trilemma. What is this trilemma? Some can be very fast sampling models. Some can be having diversity, can provide diversity. Some models can have high quality samples. But attaining all three is a difficult proposition as of now, right? So we try to find out, we means the research community is trying to figure out how to overcome these issues. And what happens that for over a period of time, these many models have been generated. If I look at the landscape of deep generative learning, you can see that variational autoencoders were there. In fact, some Bayesian networks, restricted Boltzmann machine were very fundamental landmarks in this area. And then normalizing flow, then came energy-based models. But it was, I must say that generative adversarial networks in 2014, when they were evolved, they were introduced, they started with a very simple idea of training models. Training the model was very simple, and so it was fast sampling, right? Then autoregressive models, and now in 2020s, denoising diffusion models also came into picture, which outperformed many models. So if I look at the landscape, it is something like this. So before 2020, there were two important models that have been still studied. People are still using these two models, variational autoencoders and their variants, and generative adversarial network and their variants as well. So if I look at VAE, idea is to maximize variational lower bound. Those who are not familiar with this, don't worry, I will explain to you what is that. So what happens that the observations are presented before this is a network. This is a neural network, right? Observations are presented before the neural network. It learns to encode them, right? Encode them like, as as I told, as I always tell in the class, that if you meet your friend 20 years later, how do you recognize him or her? Because you have encoded them by their face, by their characteristics, voice, something like that, right? So this they encode, and given the encoding, like latent representation or an encode code of this, you are able to reconstruct the same element, right? That is known as encoder decoder architecture, and autoencoders generally reconstruct the same element. But here in variational autoencoder, it is not like the same. What happens, given the sample, it learns the probability distribution of the data distribution from where the samples are coming. So it is actually learning the data distribution and not the simple code, data distribution of the code, right? And then it will be, so once that it is able to do that, it is able to generate new samples which can have variations from the samples, but they are similar to the original samples, but can have little variations in that, right? Now, what is there in, so please feel free in asking if you have any questions or doubts coming. What is adversarial training? In case of GAN, what the new idea was, that generator was given to generate samples from some latent representation. Let us call it noise. From some noise vector, it was given the task to generate something meaningful, the data distribution, images or the samples close to the data distribution from where, which we actually want. But discriminator was given the task to identify where these samples that are generated are coming from the generator model or they are coming from the real world. So are they actually synthetic or they are real? So in a competition between the two, what happens, there is a game problem that is called a game problem. So while generator tries to maximize the losses of discriminator, discriminator tries to minimize its own loss in identifying correctly what is a real world object and what is a generated object that they call fake, right? So that is the idea. So in this game formulation of this problem, what happens that when after some time you see that the discriminator is loss is saturated or its accuracy is saturated, and generator starts producing images that appear to be realistic. So that is a very high level overview of these two models that I have given. But in case you have some doubts, you can definitely ask, what is maximizing variational lower bound? What happens that you are only getting some samples from a large database from where the samples are, right? So we do not really know what is the data distribution. What we do is to approximate it with another distribution, right? And in that process, we try to find out a lower bound on the log likelihood of original distribution, that is P data, right? Or P theta, you can call it, because we are modeling it by theta, so parameter. So we find out a lower bound of the log likelihood of the distribution. So we want to maximize. It is equal to 0. If the likelihood of something happening is 0, it is the basic crude idea that I'm giving you. All right. So, yeah. 0, 1 here is, if it is, so it is a binary classifier. So either it will be classifying this as an image which is coming from a real world, or it is a synthetic image. So if it is synthetic, 0, if it is real, it is 1, or the vice versa. Is it okay? Anyone having any other question? All right, so that was generative models before 2020, but 2020 came with a wonderful surprise of diffusion model. So before we go ahead with diffusion model, a brief comparison of VAE and GAN, right? So when we take a brief comparison of VAE and GAN, you can see, if I look at the training objective, the training objective is reconstruction loss plus KL divergence. What is KL divergence? You have two distributions. One is the original data distribution. The other one is the approximated data distribution. We don't want them to be diverged. We want them to be as close as possible. So we will be using this quantity, right? Reconstruction loss plus KL divergence. And in case of GAN, it is the objective function of a min-max game problem, minimizing the loss and maximizing the loss, or maximizing the gain. So in case of image quality, because both of them were primarily used for image generation, VAE, we found that it is medium, sometimes it is also blurry, but GANs really produce very realistic high quality images. Training stability, VAE you will find is easier to train, although now codes are available, but the code can be, you can find that you are actually generating a probability, approximating a probability distribution. So a lot of codes are available. So it is easy to train and mostly stable. In case of GAN, what happens that it is very highly unstable to any parameter, hyperparameter tuning, or because both the discriminator and generator are competing with each other. So it becomes unstable in many cases. Mode collapse means it is producing very high quality samples, but no variations. Very, very similar kind of samples, right? Likelihood estimation is, it estimates data likelihood. That means maximizes the likelihood of joint, of all the samples from where samples are coming, the data likelihood, it is approximating that, so maximizing that. And there is no explicit likelihood estimation. That made this GAN very, very successful. Training was easy, although we are facing these problems still with a lot of variants that are existing in GAN. So medium, sometimes blurry, unstable, mode collapse. So if you remember, I discussed this trilemma that we have. So 2020 onwards came with a wonderful new model, diffusion models, and you can see that lot of variation, lot of beautiful what happens? This is creating trouble. I'll do that. नहीं वो तो ठीक है. Okay, fine. Thank you. So the idea is inspired by non-equilibrium statistical physics. Idea is to systematically and slowly destroy structure in a data distribution through an iterative forward diffusion process, they call it. And we then reverse this, we learn to reverse the diffusion process that restores structure from noise and yielding a highly flexible and say tractable generative model in the data of the data, right? That is the idea. So given the data, we first destroy its structure, right? And keep on adding noise iteratively. And then we make use of a reverse diffusion process, okay? So idea is, can we estimate a complex data distribution from where samples are coming, right? How? by starting with a simple distribution like Gaussian is one of the most common distribution. So we start with a common distribution. So what happens that if I look at the data distribution, my dear friends, you see that data distribution is not always normal kind, right? It's not a Gaussian distribution. In the city itself, you'll find people variation, right? They can be different type of, because in the city of Jabalpur was initially dominated by English rule. And so we have English people also still, some people who are from, who have English ancestors, right? Then we have Chinese as well. Then we have Indians of all type of thing. So we can say that it's not likely that it is a Gaussian distribution. So we start with this. So principal idea is what? Use a Markov chain of diffusion process where we go to the next step from the current step only, right? We don't consider the past stages from the current steps to gradually convert one distribution into another, starting from a very simple distribution until the target distribution is accurately estimated. That is the idea. Well, we do not know what is the distribution. So you can keep trying again and again until it is satisfactory to the person who is a user of this system. So this is inspired by the idea used in non-equilibrium thermodynamics by Jarzynski, and it is a beautiful thing where they say that in non-equilibrium thermodynamics, what is the relation that can be drawn between equilibrium state and non-equilibrium state? It's a beautiful formula that was given. So inspired by that simple formula, this diffusion model is done. And so if I, let's look at this simple distribution. And suppose you have, this is the target distribution. It's a very different, it is a mixture of Gaussian model actually, Gaussian mixture. But let us look at that distribution. We have to reach there, right? So in the forward pass, what we do is perturbation is applied step by. So samples are coming from here, right? We will be applying perturbations and we will be obtaining the Gaussian distribution, right? That is the idea. Okay. So the variance schedule, that is the variance that we will be applying in applying the noise here, is designed in such a way that finally at the tth step, starting from the sample x0, at the tth step, I should be the probability distribution that is there should be somewhat closer to Gaussian distribution in the forward pass. There's no learning in this part. But in the reverse process, we learn. What we learn? We learn to move back from xt to x0. It's just another Markov chain with learned Gaussian distributions. So, but this time the this Markov chain is learned to remove noise. I'm sorry. So we start by sampling from here, say from this Gaussian distribution, and then slowly, it is actually a slow process. It takes a lot of iterations. We reach a stage where you get what? You get the, like, we have moved in this way. Now we are going back. We have, so you have, from here you have reached that. Now we are going back from here to original samples. So that is the idea. So we learn to remove noise slowly and iteratively. Is that okay? Well, I know that that is not okay because I'm telling you something which I teach normally in 2-3 classes. We have taught last time. But well, this is, there are some popular text to diffusion models. Many of you might have, how many of you have used them? Many of you have used? Huh? No one has ever generated an image. You must be using, right? So if you might not have a fingerprint of this, but I suggest that please create a database that will be useful for a biometric research. So these are there, and then again that generative learning trilemma. where you can see that we have variational autoencoders are fast samples, and they are able to like provide some diversity. Generative models are high quality samples, fast sampling, but mode collapse is a problem. So they do not cover different modes or diversity. They are still struggling, although there are very wonderful models given by NVIDIA like StyleGAN, and conditional GANs are also there, star GANs. There are a lot of variations that is possible now. Still, if I look at the three models, they compete with each other in the sense that denoising diffusion model is generating high quality samples. It is also covering better mode coverage and giving better mode coverage and diversity, but it is slow. So with that, back to generative AI introduction. Now I move to generative AI in biometric application. Yeah. Actually, I take a, say, just think of a feature that we want to have, and from where we want to generate an image, right, of a person. So that feature can be, for example, hair color can go from black to white to different colors also, all this. So I randomly choose one value of hair color. Then eye color can be also different color. I randomly choose one point. Then I randomly choose skin color. I randomly choose skin texture. So all these are points, features of a face to be generated. So that you can consider as noise. I call it noise because these are randomly chosen, and then I expect my model to generate a person having face of those virtues. Is that right? Any other question? So these are three competing models. Let me repeat: generative adversarial network is a uh, two-person game problem where one person is a network, another person is also a network. The two networks are competing with each other, whereas first network tries to identify whether the model is the image presented to it before it is a, or sample presented before it is a real sample or as a synthetic sample, and the generator tries to achieve the level so that the samples appear to be realistic, real world samples, right? So I hope you are aware with the Turing test. Turing test in AI. Turing test in AI is what? It is a test where randomly questions are thrown to on the other side. Think of there is a one machine and there is a one person, and I'm throwing the question to it, and either the machine is randomly answering or the person is randomly answering. But if I'm unable to decide whether the answer was given by a person or a machine, that is the probability that the answer was given by a machine or a man or a person is half, suppose, then we say that the machine has passed Turing test, right? So this is like that. The discriminator is befooled by the generator. That generator, it thinks that yes, all the images are real. Right? Then the training stops. So then in the diffusion process, like from a very as I told you, that the model that we are considering Z, the latent variable can be white color hair, or skin color can be brown, or like Indian faces. So if that is there, can you generate an image? So from there, we call it a noise kind of thing. We start removing the noise so that we reach that. So generative AI in biometric systems, well, this is the first part was having, I can say that I have some uh, confidence in the first part. In the second part, my colleague Preeti is more like having expertise, and this is not my domain. But given a chance, I thought, let me grab this chance of discussing with you all. So generative AI in biometric systems. If I ask you, do you recognize this great person? Nobody would say no, right? Why? There is an inbuilt biometric recognition system in your, and biometric recognition systems are what? Primarily aiming to or striving to become like a human biometric recognition system. So the whole idea is that how to achieve that level of recognition that human generally has for these types of images. Now, if it is a vein kind of biometric or it is a DNA biometric, then experts in those fields, right? We will not be able to identify. So that is the like whole biometric recognition or biometric authentication, whatever you call it, different types of things. The whole theory revolves around this. Now, application of generative AI in biometric. First, very simple application is synthetic biometric data generation for training, testing, and data sharing while preserving privacy. So what happens that we have, as I told you, that we have to make very powerful biometric authentication, verification, registration, recognition systems. How can we make them so powerful? Humans have the tendency to learn within 4, 5, 6 samples. Current deep learning models are data hungry, so they need lot of data to be trained initially, right? Humans are trained over a period of time, but similarly, like say you can have up to 20 years you are exposed to, suppose, new world, you learn more. If you are living in a village, you will be learning all the things of a village, so that you will be actually overfitting, right? If a child has never seen a camel, he will think that the camel is something close to dog, right? Okay, something like that only. So synthetic biometric data generation is done for training. The biometric data is not easy to get. Privacy issues are there, and then revealing of identity can also uh, uh, leakage can also lead to many other risks, right? So therefore what we, and then there are, as I told you, that for old people getting the finger biometric is difficult. If it is very young child, then also getting the biometric is like newborn baby, getting right biometric is difficult. So rare cases also are there. Data augmentation to create variations in pose, illumination, aging, noise, and occlusion. Anybody can very easily understand that the same, if you have taken pictures like this picture, right? I remember one of our Japanese professors, Professor Kato, used, and it's a 10 years, more than 10 years back now. So he used to come and he would take just a picture of 60 plus people in the class. 1, 2, 3 pictures, attendance is done. Attendance is over, right? He would never ask you to write on the sheet. The idea was that if I'm sitting like this, my attendance is counted. So how is it possible? You have to actually, so first day he registered all those, and the next day, even if you're sitting, your face is occluded, is something, your attendance is counted. So we need to generate such data to train our train systems so that they become powerful. Then privacy preserving biometric to support cancelable. You will come to know about cancel. I don't know. I could not attend her talk today because we were busy with another session. So there's something called cancelable. If you do not know, don't worry. We will be discussing in future lectures. Revocable, because if the biometric identity, the data is compromised, you can revoke it and replace it by something. An unlinkable biometric, so that it remains private, it maintains the privacy of the person. Then there are several attacks on the biometric system. You have been witnessing this, that every time you get a a call that your phone is blocked or something. Yeah. So this anti-spoofing and security evaluation, we can generate deepfakes and spoof samples for generating presentation. There's something called presentation attack detection system. So I'm presenting myself, say, a fingerprint, which is a not a correct fingerprint, but I'm presenting another fingerprint, um, synthetically generated. So uh, how we can say that this is not the right fingerprint. Then, as I told, rare case and bias handling. All right. So these are several applications. A very recent paper has studied the suitability of substitutability of generative AI based biometric in different applications. So instead of my own real biometric, is it possible that I substitute generated biometric, right? And the idea is this, that they created LLM-based face biometric dataset. They created using 7 state-of-the-art diffusion-based model. You can see that the quality of the images are quite good. And then they tested these models, the performance of these models. So these biometric attribute classifiers were trained on synthetic data, and they were also trained on real data as well. And then they were, it was seen that they perform many times better compared to trained with real images. So you have detection systems which are trained on real data, which are trained on synthetic data as well, right? So what happens that if we make use of synthetic data, the detection system showed much better performance, exhibited much better performance than the systems which were trained only on real images. All right. So this was something. So these experiments further validate that classifier models trained on synthetic data, tested on real data. See, so this, yeah, one thing I forgot to mention, that they were generalizable. Trained on synthetic data and tested on real data outperform models trained on real data and tested on another real data. So this is cross data validation was much better. So they hold promise. Of course, there are several iterations that are required. Now, how can I finish without talking about foundation models? Foundation models are the state of the art now. So foundation models are neural network based AI models. They're trained on massive unlabeled data sets to handle a wide variety of tasks, from translating text to images, video generation, summarizing text, correcting grammar. All these models that we are making use of, they're all uh, actually they're moving towards, we are moving towards translation model. There's a language-based models can be, say, GPT, Palm, Claude, Llama, vision-based Clip, VIT, Dino, SAM, Blip, and all. Similarly, multimodal data, Gemini, Lava, Cosmos, Florence, then code. These are some examples are given. For code generation, you have many, like Cursor, I forgot to mention here. So, friends, foundation models are the state of the art. If you have to work in this area, you have to actually work on foundation models. But foundation models, as I said, are trained on massive data. So we can only work on like zero shot learning or few shot learning of already pre-trained foundation models. So foundation models used in biometric application, like zero shot or few shot learning, face verification, iris recognition, soft biometric. If you do not know what is soft biometric, perhaps we will discuss in like sometimes your gait tells you whether the person was actually the person or not, or your height, your many things which can be considered as soft biometric. Presentation at attack detection, So what happens that by just learning through this, we can make very powerful such systems for face verification or presentation attack detection. Then we have fine-tuned foundation models also, where base models are this, then speaker verification, it's iris segmentation. Then we have for benchmarking, like we discussed, for benchmarking also, what we can do is that we can think making use of these models for benchmarking our face recognition models, attributes, different face attributes, then anti-spoofing. So these models are now state of the art, and they are very much used in understanding how powerful our biometric authentication or security systems are there. Then explainability and question answering. We have BERT or ChatGPT, where why a face was recognized or not recognized as face, image was recognized or not recognized as image of a person. Then we have self-supervised learning methods, which are used also, and then multitask learning. Several applications you'll find. This is a review paper published in 2025 in Transactions on Information Forensic and Security. This is a wonderful paper. I suggest you study this paper if you are interested. Then before I conclude, I would like to, I think I'm not getting a, yeah. Before I conclude, I would like to just tell you one very interesting application that these people have developed very recently. Like they tested the language-based models in biometric. So giving two images of a same person, input image, ChatGPT setup like prompt was, are both images from the same identity? Explain why. So he said, ChatGPT said 95% yes. The facial features such as shape of the face, eyes, nose, and lips appear to be very similar in both images. Yesterday, Professor Kiran Raja was delivering a lecture on explainability of models. We can say for verification, a person who is a simply 12th pass boy who is verifying your identity. If he takes help of ChatGPT, now, because maybe my Aadhaar card was having when I had good hair, and maybe my color was also fairer, and then after 20 years, everything changes, right? So the boy would take help of ChatGPT to know whether this is there or not. So face verification and explainability. Then the soft biometric estimation also, like this is the input image. Question is, prompt is, provide a list with the facial attributes. So it has very easily, it has identified some attributes like young, white, rosy cheeks and all those things, no beard, fully visible forehead where it is not, and brown eyes where it is not. But it has identified soft biometric output very correctly. So things are moving with a very fast pace. And the question is, are we able to make pace? Are we able to compete with that? My dear friends, my question is, keep on browsing the literature, take help of whatever ChatGPT can give Gemini. I have found that for all scholarly articles, Gemini is giving much better results, outputs. Yeah. So, but for ChatGPT, no comparison. There are having different capabilities. So, yeah, one thing. So while ChatGPT may not attain the same level of accuracy as dedicated models, it presents a promising utility as an initial assessment, right? Tool with zero-shot learning. So another like I discussed with you that survey and Outlook, they have compared those vision language models with baseline in this, and you can see that the SOTA vision models were performing much better than even the humans in many cases. I will not go into details of current limitations of foundation models, lack of domain-specific training. Models are mostly trained on massive data, which is general purpose data. For example, for biometric recognition systems, they have not been trained. So that can be a problem. Then we have limited interpretability and explainability because these are large models. And sometimes linguistic based models hallucinate a lot. They appear to be quite correct, although they are not correct. Then misalignment with biometric system requirements can be different. Performance in low resource and edge settings can be a challenge. And bias and fairness has already been there in all AI systems. So in this, well, misuse, who doesn't know what are the misuse, different misuses for the paucity of time. I will not go into details. You will be listening about these misuses and you will be practicing yourself. Like deepfake was when? 2018, 2018, around 2018 deepfake, 2017, yeah. So since then, very high, yeah. So during the StyleGAN period, when StyleGAN was during the same period, I don't remember. So with that, thanks to you. And if you have any questions, please feel free and ask. Thank you. Thanks. I must thank my coordinator for giving me this opportunity. Preeti is so actively engaged in research in biometric and always keeps on thinking